5:34. We'll call the meeting to order. The approval for the minutes of March 6, 2024. I have a motion on the floor.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 6, 2024.
I'll second.
We have a motion on the floor from the minutes of March the 6th, 2024, and a second. Ready for the question? All in favor, let it known by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carried. Subdivision and land development. A, time extension to meet conditions of final plan approval at 221 North Prince Street. And I assume we're going to kind of do both of them at the same time.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think that would be good.
And also 227 North Prince Street.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want to update the commission that I did have an opportunity to have some correspondence with the applicant and who we have here this evening, and wanted to give you a couple of updates. I was able to confirm with building codes that building plans have been submitted. They, at that time, had not yet been entered into our system because it sounds like we had just received them back from the third party, but they are in the system now, and sign-offs are proceeding there. I also had an opportunity to review the floor plans as well, which I sent out to the commission just today. Happy to pull those up if needed, but did just want to confirm that I got to review what the common amenities were in the building, and took some just general floor area measurements, and things did seem to I would say be sufficient for the development and the number of people that are provided there. I also had some correspondence with Commissioner Shirk as well, who had some questions about the common facilities there as well. So happy to answer any questions, but I think that given the latest updates and communications with the applicant, that the city feels comfortable supporting time extension. We would like to recommend shortening that time extension, and we can get into that discussion with the commission, but thought I'd offer you all the opportunity to ask me or the applicant any questions. And Chairman, if you would be so inclined, we could also invite the applicant up just to add a few words maybe and provide a status update of the project. Feel free, yes. Just make sure that red button is on the microphone.
Good evening. Thank you for your time. Is there a question?
No question. Would you like to provide an update just on where things are, or add any?
Sure. I mean,
Would you state your name, please?
Sean McDougall, representing the building owner. We are seeking 12 months. We do need that amount of time. As you may be aware, we still have historical commission to work through with the front facade. We've been working with masonry contractors and our historical consultant to address the restoration and/or removal and replacement of the bricks on the front facade wall. Those brick boards have to be prepared, so there is another hurdle for this project, which is the historical commission before we can do anything with the facade of the building. So when you talk about less than 12 months, ideally will be far less than 12, but I do want to give us the ability. I don't want to have to come back here if we haven't worked our way through all the issues. We are still working out too with the architects who are here with their plans. The prior owner had an agreement with the architects and their plans, and new ownership has not finalized their agreement with the architects and their plans, so we're still going to resolve that as well. The units aren't going to change, the use isn't going to change, but there may be some architectural plan changes.
would those architectural plan changes affect the number of units or the size of the common amenities that are?
No, no. No, it won't. I mean, we're looking hard at 227 for a redesign, potentially a redesign, fewer units, larger units, to compete with some of the other projects and other units we've seen around here. So it will not, the density will not increase. The amenities will not change.
Okay. So, just to clarify for the commission, I think also for the applicant, what the request was and what the decision is that the commission can act on is an extension for time to meet conditions of the land development plan and record the plan. That is separate from historical commission approvals.
Correct.
Separate from building permit or actually mobilizing to do the project. So what in the conditions of approval for this project requires 12 months to execute? Given that you've submitted nearly everything at this point to me that
Sure.
to meet those conditions.
If I can quantify or encapsulate that question, so long as those conditions are encapsulated in the letter that was sent that had those 8 conditions, bear with me a minute while I pull it up. Do you recall the letter that I'm referring to from your office?
Yes, I do, and I think that is what you included in your request letter too.
Yes, that was dated February 2nd, 2023. Excuse me. There are 8 items, so long as those 8 items don't expand, then we'll be able to meet the conditions.
Okay, just for clarity's sake, just bear with me for one more moment, and I'll pull that up for the commission to see. I believe these are the conditions you're referring to, right? So, so the first one we can say is complete, also ongoing through building codes review, that's fine. Easements and agreements have been submitted for review. You have submitted, I think, all of them at this point. The financial guarantee is pending. I know I've been in contact with the bank, but haven't seen a letter of credit quite yet. The lighting plan, that is in accordance with our subdivision land development, parcel and address units. I'd have to check. I don't know that that's been assigned yet, but that wouldn't take much effort to do. Access drives, these are existing. They don't need to go to traffic commission. So that was under an old interpretation of that ordinance. So you're good on that. And you've submitted the tree appraisal and you've agreed to pay the fee. So I guess from my vantage point, the only thing that will really take a little bit of time, and we could probably turn around in a matter of weeks, is just the review of the easements and agreements and getting those back to you. So that I just wanted to make sure I understood, why the 12 months rather than say 3 months, which I think would be plenty of time to record the plans, unless there's, ownership issues that I think I would just want to understand. Like if you can't record the plans because you can't get the letter of credit, because that has, I don't know, you can walk us through that.
No, we're prepared to issue a letter of credit. We can record the plan. So why don't we settle on 180 days? Is that fair accommodation?
I'll defer to the commission on that. Just wanted to make sure they were clear on what was needed and why, and relating that to the length of time.
When did the new owner take ownership of the property?
September of 23.
September of 2023. So just my personal thoughts and my gut reaction here is, considering the history of this project, I think a 90-day check-in is probably more sufficient just to, one, kind of put some pressure on to keep this moving along, because it has been sitting for an extremely long time. It's in a pretty dilapidated state as of now, and, it's in a main part of our city, so I think it requires some attention. So Personally, I think 3 months is a sufficient time frame.
I would like to go with the 6 months personally. I think, yeah, that feels correct to me, especially with new ownership. You've had ownership for 6 months, another 6 months seems doable. Otherwise, in 3 months, we're going to see this back here, and if we see it with another owner, it's going to need another plan. And this dilapidated property is just going to continue to be such for possibly a longer time.
So I'm not voting tonight, but I will give my 2 cents here. If the commission is going to approve it, I would agree with Nicole's assessment. Because further, I'm a little confused that you haven't spoken to the historical commission already, because what is going to be retained that's falling down, it's going to be retained. So I just don't understand why in the last 6 months the conversation hasn't started with the historical commission.
Conversations have commenced with the Historical Commission. It's finding product that resembles an authentic replacement of the brick.
Okay.
We're expecting that when we start working on that wall, we're liable to lose a large percentage of 100-year-old bricks that will just fall apart.
Sure.
So the shape, the depth, the color has to match identically. Commission has to sign off on that. So we've gotten samples of the bricks. They're out with firms to try and either reproduce it or produce it in some form or fashion. How long will that take? We don't know. We have to get those bricks, put together sample boards for then the commission to review and sign off and approve it. So that is a process.
Commission meetings where they've gone through these procedures before, so I understand what you're saying and putting down. I still haven't been given a lot of confidence here. I think it would be appropriate if the commission's going to allow a time extension, a 3-month check-in. That was it seemed like that was one of your major things as far as why a year was bad, but then we established that wasn't a part of our requirements, and then you dropped to 180 days. It kind of seems relative. So I think we should move you forward, but I think a 90-day check-in's appropriate.
I think we've done more in the last 6 weeks than the prior development did in a year.
Sure.
So the new ownership has certainly made the investment and is showing that he's committed to completing this. 90 days sounds like a lot of time. It's not a lot of time.
No, I know.
You've got holidays coming up, so I'd rather not have the proverbial gun to our temple to be back here in, 90 days if we don't have certain things in place. We're happy to record the plans and we're happy to comply with this, but we'd like the 180 days, which I don't think is an unreasonable request given the complexity of this project.
Tony and Nicole, that was one of my concerns as well. With 90 days would put us pretty much right into the beginning of the summer season. We'd be there. But if we did the 180 days or said, for example, September 1st, that would give us just a little bit of time towards the end of summer to maybe regroup. I know a lot of times it is harder then, but I don't think it would be any sweat off of, I don't know what the term would be, but it wouldn't be a burden to us as a commission to maybe do September 1st or our first meeting in September as a goal.
I guess it's still not clear to me, of these requirements that you haven't completed, which of these do you think is going to take you 180 days?
None of these items will take 180 days. Unless there's some construction documents that we have to change.
So, it seems like of the ones that are remaining, 90 days should be plenty. I'm not sure why you're asking for more than that.
Because with this project, as soon as we think we have things set up to proceed, the project gets derailed. This is my third ownership change. So again, 90 days sounds like a lot of time. It's not. We'll be able to comply with all of these. We may be making some architectural changes that could delay that portion of the plans, and we have to deal with the approvals from the Historical Commission for the front facade wall.
Again, but that's not
No,
relevant for.
It's not.
Are you anticipating another ownership change? 'Cause it sounds
No. Listen, I didn't expect the second or the third. So no, Paul's completely committed to this. Again, he's done more in 6 weeks than the last ownership did in 6-7 months in terms of getting things moving along.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that and
Yeah.
would love to see more progress, but it seems to me that 90 days is reasonable for the remaining requirements.
I'll just add, I certainly defer to the commission on this and respect however you want to land on this. The city's not opposed to a 6-month extension. From my vantage point, it does seem like 90 days, we could accomplish this as long as we're working hard together. But I think we're amenable either way. I think beyond 6 months, there starts to be more concern about whether the project is alive or not.
So worst case scenario, 6 months from now, we're sitting here back in the same place where there's another time extension request being asked, and that project is not proceeding and just sitting in its stale state.
Yeah,
Then what?
if it came back and the commission didn't extend the request, the plan would be dead and they would have to start from the beginning again and resubmit. And as you know, this project has already had that happen one time, which is the only project that I've ever had that happen with. So there is persistence here for sure.
So my thoughts are, we've already extended this project a few times. We've had a couple conversations regarding it. If we consider a 90-day extension, knowing that there could be a possibly adding an additional 90 days to that after they come forward in the 90 days, hopefully within that time frame, they've met all the conditions of approval. However, if they have not, that at least is allowing us to put some added responsibility on them to keep things moving in a timely manner, and then allows us to revisit this and potentially give them one more time extension of an additional 90 days. So that would give them their 180-day extension. They would just have a 90-day check-in to ensure that everything's moving forward and progressing as it should.
Sure, appreciate that, Ms. Seifert. One additional detail that we haven't mentioned yet is the expiration of this plan. While there's a request submitted by the time it was on an agenda and then was tabled, we're already partway through the 90 days for the extension. Some middle ground here is we could say 120, which would buy them back the 20 or 30 days that they lost in the process here. And I think that would be a more realistic time frame if the intention of the commission is to truly provide 90 days. I think 120 actually gets them closer to that amount of time.
So the time frame of that would start at the expiration of the plan.
Exactly. Yeah, which would be backdated at this point.
Okay.
I'd like to add an extension of 90 days with the intent on them returning with a report at that point, I think would be helpful to maybe consider it beyond that, at least just for a report at that time, not necessarily, a whole new plan or anything like that, but a report based on the idea that these bricks are being remanufactured and you have no timeline as to when that might be done. I think to have an update on that would be ideal. Just to add that.
Yeah, part of why I think the timeline makes sense to me is just like I understand ownership's changed, and I don't fault you as an individual for all the past, but in my view, we're looking at a building that if it doesn't get repaired soon should be going through blighted building procedures. This is a serious concern of mine for the streetscape of the city. We literally have a whole city building boarded up the whole way up. I can appreciate supply chain issues with sourcing materials, but that part of the structure, the front part, is going to be retained. So please start acting on it, because regardless of how this plan goes, you're still the owner of a building that needs a lot of help. All right?
We have. That process for the front facade is we're actively working on that to get that repaired and or replaced.
Thank you.
regardless of the outcome here, yes, the front facade wall needs to be dealt with.
I'll make a motion that we approve the time extension for 221 and 227 North Prince Street for 120 days.
We want to hear from the public first. Yeah.
Sorry.
Any comment from the public? Public comment? My suggestion is for us as a commission to vote on three separate numbers here in terms of days. We have 90, we have 120, and we have 180. So I would like the commission to vote on all three and see which one we want to choose.
Yeah, a poll. No. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure a poll is actually appropriate with Robert's rules, but we could have a motion for one of those, and if it stands, accept it, or otherwise make a new motion.
Oh,
Yeah, but.
I think we're kind of,
Okay.
I was really saying it's probably the same thing, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I will again make a motion for a time extension for 221 North Prince Street and 227 North Prince Street for 120 days.
Second.
How many days?
120.
I'll second.
Ready for the question? All in favor, let it known by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. 120 days. Yeah.
Thank you.
Final sub-plan for Park City Mall.
Mr. Chairman and Commission, want to add some brief comments to this. I want to let you know that we've, staff and myself have been working closely with ELA and Brookfield Development, as well as Mr. Cassidy here on figuring out some of the logistics for this plan, trying to meet the spirit of the subdivision and land development ordinance while remaining reasonable given the peculiarity of this particular site. We especially focused on the comments that we got from the Planning Commission regarding the transit access, as well as pedestrian amenities surrounding the transit access. And I believe that city staff and the developer have reached a solution that we think is tenable. We're supportive of the plan that is before you this evening. We do have some conditions of approval we can walk through, but certainly invite any of the questions that you have, for city staff as well, and what the process was. We went through some iterations to get here, so I'll pass it over to Ms. Love to present.
Okay, good evening. Cheryl Love with the LA Group. We also have Georgios and Rachel from Brookfield Properties and Bill Cassidy, as Douglas had mentioned. We have continued to work diligently through several reiterations of this plan, primarily related to that sidewalk connection. With Douglas and other staff input from the city, we had worked towards relocating that bus stop where there is no sidewalk currently, further up closer to the intersection of Ring Road and to Plaza Boulevard. So generally this location on the plan. It's complicated. There's a right turn lane there. We looked at several different locations, communicated with the Transit Authority and their experts as to the viability of whether we could do that. And after several attempts at locations, basically, it is not able to occur in that way because it would cause the bus driver to actually be committing a traffic violation to pull into the right turn lane, load and unload passengers, and then re-enter the travel lane again. So the Transit Authority is, their final decision has been to leave the bus stop where it exists. And then we are working, we will be adding new sidewalk there. On the graphic, we showed a little red dashed line. It's a little difficult for you to see, but generally, most of that sidewalk already exists. We are simply providing the spot from the bus sign to connect up to it. We'll remove some landscape materials. We're not affecting the trees in that area. But that red line kind of emphasizes for you what we are recording with these plans as a pedestrian access route from the bus through a pedestrian easement along that existing sidewalk to get up to the intersection there of Plaza Boulevard and Ring Road. Additionally, we are adding some sidewalk. There is a bus stop on the west side of the road of Plaza Boulevard with a sign on a pole, a utility pole. You can see some sidewalk that goes from that southwest corner or the left side of that intersection down to where the bus stop is and back. So that is actually within the right-of-way of the street, but we are providing a sidewalk from there. So that will provide connectivity for pedestrians from both bus locations towards the intersection, which is where we had been working with Douglas and staff to get riders up at that primary intersection to be able to have better access to all different directions of pedestrian travel. There are a few other, on the plan on the screen, you can see just above that intersection, several areas where we're going to improve the existing ADA ramps. So that area will also be redone. They currently do not have the truncated dome mats, the detectable warning mats. And in fact, as you approach Olive Garden, all of those little islands through that zone have ramps, except when you get to the front of the Olive Garden, there is no ramp on that immediate side where that cursor's focusing there. So we will put a ramp in there as well, which links that side together. So those are some of the details we've continued to hammer out. We had received Shade Tree Commission approval. This plan is depicting, we've calculated the street frontages along these lots, basically will require a total of 77 street trees. We are physically not able to fit them all. We know we have some intersection openings, some driveways. We also, there are 20 existing trees on the little rendering I put in front of you. Those light-colored green trees, or very pale trees, are all existing trees, but none of those count towards our street trees. So there's 20 trees that are there, well, mature-sized trees, but they do not count towards our actual total of 77. So we are providing 38 additional trees beyond what exists. And that leaves us with a deficit of 39 trees, which sounds like a lot, but we just can physically not fit them. A lot of it's because the 20 trees are already there. So a fee in lieu of will be provided by Brookfield Properties to the city for those remaining 39 trees that we just cannot provide space for. Again, the reminder, this plan, the purpose of this plan is a subdivision plan to create separate lots. The one will be for BJ's Restaurant. There would be one separate lot for Longhorn Steakhouse. And it almost feels like a separate lot, but it's not in reality. The Olive Garden, DSW, Bonefish Grill, and the Ashley Furniture side, it feels separate, but it's still right now part of the overall property. So that would become its own separate lot as well. We've looked very carefully at the parking counts, loading, all the other things we've vetted through. As to what we are compliant with. And really, we are down to having resolved most items in the review letter. There are a few small things that remain, and we will address those. We will certainly also provide the financial security, the developer agreement, and all of the last remaining comments that are in the letter should be easily addressed by us in the few remaining comments that we have to work through. We have some modifications, but I'd rather hear if you have any questions first. I kind of went through that quickly, but there's not a lot left here. In reality, we are getting the sidewalk connections and improving some ADA and then the trees.
Well, first, I want to thank you because I do feel like I was heard,
Oh, you were heard.
especially with the transit connection. So
Yes,
much
it's-
appreciated. You're
yes.
setting the groundwork for, who knows if there'll be any future
Ex-
development opportunities on that parcel, but you know what? You're setting the groundwork. It's going to look like it really belongs, and people are going to feel appreciated.
Absolutely.
Second class, so thank you.
Yep,
for-
absolutely. It's needed there. So thank you again for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, I also agree that seeing the improvements for the transit is really appealing. I did want to ask though, what are the sidewalk connections like on the like the Park City parcel itself that will remain? It's not on this, you can kind of see where the sidewalk goes up a little bit, or the crosswalk rather, but I just want to see how the pedestrians would actually be connected to the Park City itself.
Given that this was, relatively simple subdivision, as I mentioned in my comments, we were trying to scale the improvements to the size and the scale of the request as well, which is especially challenging on a site of this size. And of course, this isn't the first time that we've been through a similar conversation with Brookfield. When we had the Bonton plant, we had similar negotiations and figuring out how to approve a plan for a project that really comes to us in pieces and not in its entirety, which, I think is tough. So we did not, with staff, look at connections deeper into Park City Mall, but really tried to focus on the parcels that were being divided up and how they were interfacing with Plaza Boulevard and the bus stop. I will say, just from my experience out there, and also knowing what's proposed in the plan, there are not, new amenities or really very many or any amenities that are, helping to bridge this access road here to get further into the Park City Mall. I will say with the transit connections, primarily the interior mall is being served by a separate location for the bus stop. And the one that is out on Plaza Boulevard is primarily serving those restaurant pads and nearby retail. Does that help answer the question a bit?
No, I think that doesn't answer my question because there's no other improvements off-site of these three, what would be lots. But I think that's still a concern of mine. I understand we're trying to minimize, and I do appreciate the additional improvements here. Because that was my original concern, why would we approve a subdivision without any sort of improvements to the public realm? But if we can get a safe, secure pedestrian connection from the new lots to the original lot, I think that's pretty important. These three connections look great, and the improvements, ADA ramps, all great. But I still think you need to connect Park City to these other subdivided lots. Doesn't have to be multiple connections, but just something.
There are connections. They may not be easily definable, but from this intersection, there are sidewalks along the northern side of that drive that takes anyone from this area up towards JCPenney's, and that from this location provides a connection up to that area.
What my concern is, and maybe I'm wrong about this, what I'm trying to figure out, I see a crosswalk going north from the top northwest corner where the red line for the new sidewalk is. I see what appears to be a crosswalk going north, but I don't think there's a sidewalk there, and that's what I'm trying to hit on. If we can get a sidewalk connection along that side to the sidewalk that you're mentioning on the lower end of Park City there, that would satisfy my concern.
Mr. Dessler, just to make sure I'm following, I pulled up an aerial. Where are you referring to?
The parking lot.
Yeah, so you're thinking somewhere around here,
No,
up here.
Yeah, because I saw the crosswalk on the plan.
Yeah.
But they still
And for transit connections, the bus does continue then and pull directly into Park City.
it
So
does.
it would give my main concern at the time was the workers being able to get to these specific parcels, and that seems to be accommodated now. And then the second, it's still suburban, I mean, but the second level of where workers would be accommodated by them pulling into what used to be Lenscrafters. I have no idea what's over there anymore, but.
Right,
Right.
that is,
Thank you. Coles.
Yep. exactly.
So for the commission's benefit, in the package, I have the conditions of approval, which also references our staff comment letter. I know we haven't looked at the staff comment letters that often, and oftentimes they're getting into some fairly technical comments. But we've highlighted in yellow things that are outstanding, which are very few in this case. So, these are fairly standard things to take care of, signatures, an opinion of probable cost, which we're intentionally waiting on until we have approval from you all. So there's nothing here that we can't take care of. In the conditions of approval themselves, just walk through those briefly. Of course, satisfying the comment letter. Number 2 is providing the fee in lieu of for planting, typically at an amount of $500 per tree. Submit the opinion of probable cost, which I mentioned, and then there would have to be financial guarantee in that same amount provided to the city, and then entering into a standard developers agreement, which just outlines the process for inspections and return of guarantee, basically. So very standard. I also do want to draw your attention to the modifications. I think Ms. Love touched on these. The first 2 that are listed, both the scale and the topographic features, is really due to the size and peculiarity of this particular parcel. So the city is supportive of all of these, and then we did get approval from our water and sewer engineers that they're okay not having the size, location, material of all utilities on site, because again, we're dealing with a large site here. And then we went through the number of trees and the sidewalk connections, trying to scale that to the appropriateness of this plan.
Right. And I might add, Douglas, as you note there, the item 3 was previously approved when I was in front of you last with the discussion on sidewalk and whatnot. So that one, in my understanding, does not need action tonight because it was approved previously.
Thank you. Yes.
So there are 4.
Regarding size, location of utilities. Okay.
1, 2, 4, and 5 would be seeking recommendations tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Chair, pending any public comments, I would love to make a motion.
Any public comments? Hearing none.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to approve the final subdivision plan for Park City Center, 100 Park City Center, with modifications 1, 2, 4, and 5.
And Mr. Whalen, just to, sorry if I missed this, is that subject to the conditions and the letter?
Subject to the conditions of approval 1 through 5, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Ready for the question? All in favor, let it known by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried.
Okay, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Congratulations.
And also, I just want to say, thank you for the level of collaboration and effort that you guys put into working with the city on reaching an agreeable solution. I do really appreciate it. I know this is an unusual site, and appreciate your willingness to do that. I also hope that we've demonstrated that the city and the commission is hungry for more comprehensive planning on this site. This is a difficult site to deal with in pieces, and there's so much opportunity here, and our comprehensive plan has confirmed the importance of that. So I would be remiss if I didn't just stress that again and let you know that, we would be very eager to work with Brookfield and ELA and Mr. Cassidy on figuring out a path forward for the larger parcel and helping you realize an even better vision for that land.
Yep, thank you, Douglas. We appreciate your time and your help.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, number 4, certification of blighted properties, none. Staff report to Planning Commission.
It's me again. So I don't have a staff report planned for this evening. I do have a few just off-the-cuff comments I can provide you, and my apologies for not having something more formal. I will say that we did get the yards plan recorded last week, so thank you for your efforts with that, especially Mr. Polite for coming in and signing those plans. And we also have plans signed for the Thaddeus Stevens Community Center at the corner of Broad and Chesapeake, where that turns. And we also have signed plans for 250 College Ave, St. Joseph's Hospital, formerly. They are eager to move forward, and things seem to be materializing there for the hospital renovation, the main hospital building. The townhomes would likely be a different, sort of a second phase. So we had a lot of action on plan recordation in the past week. I had to get Mr. Play in here 2 times back to back, so thank you for that. And we don't have any plans that have otherwise been submitted that no plans have been submitted since we last met. So happy to answer any questions if there are any projects you all are curious about, either under construction or review.
I just want to note, Douglas, I do appreciate the updates on the plans that are being recorded. I think it's just helpful for us to know kind of how things are moving through the pipeline, so thank you.
Great, you're very welcome. I think since I live a day-to-day, I take it for granted that somehow you all know, but I'm glad to provide you those updates. So don't ever hesitate to reach out, and I'll keep that as a standard item on the agenda here to keep you all in the know. CS Davidson continues to be really helpful in organizing some of that information for us. And we are still hiring a senior planner position. Things are progressing, but we're still looking for our final candidate. So I hope to introduce someone to you sometime in the next coming months.
Great.
What, you mentioned the comprehensive plan tonight. We haven't spoken about that for quite some time. So I'm just curious, what are the next steps for that? And then what do you envision our next step to be, I guess?
Yeah, great question, Ms. Seufert. And it seems like every time I get a question, it suddenly jogs my memory that there's more to say, actually. So there are 2. You might remember that part of the comprehensive plan in the land use section really emphasizes some small area planning that needs to be done. And there are some things underway on that front. So we have an RFP that's going to be coming out in the coming weeks for a consultant to help with the county prison area plan, which what we're calling the East End neighborhood plan. So that's very exciting. We also submitted a grant to DCED at the state to help fund that project as well. We're meeting regularly with Lancaster City Alliance to figure out how we can coordinate some resourcing for that plan as well. In addition, we are undergoing a small area or a master site design for Sunnyside Peninsula. You may have heard that Partners for Environmental Stewardship was awarded an RFP from the city. That is a new nonprofit that is really backed by the High Foundation. And they are going to do a master site design for the city's 70 acres that we own on the peninsula, which includes the quarry, to create an ecological preserve and recreational area for the city. In addition, they have agreed to build and fully fund an environmental center there that we fully expect will be state-of-the-art and will help to interface with that nature preserve on the peninsula. So those are two really big efforts that we have that are already, underway this year. There is potentially an upcoming plan for the Northwest sort of Gateway Stadium area, primarily because of the market conditions right now and just a number of factors. So we're looking into when that process might start and how we might initiate that as a third small planning effort. It's very early in the process, but that is likely the next project that's on the horizon. So there's a lot going on with the small area planning, which we see as really the next step down from the comp plan to get more action oriented with some of the policies. In addition to that, there are a number of other programs that continue to move forward. For instance, our Parks and Rec Master Plan is underway. The Vision Zero implementation throughout the city is underway. We've expanded our critical repair program with Tenfold recently. So what I'd be willing to do is pull together more of an update for you all on the comp plan, and maybe we can think about what frequency might make sense for the Planning Commission. I've already been asked to give that presentation to Lancaster City Alliance, I think in April. So I'll already have a presentation that I can offer you guys then. Yeah.
Repeat what you said about the Lancaster County new prison, to update on that again.
Sure. So I'm sure you all know the county commissioners said that they're going to close that prison. They're opening a new location outside of the city in Lancaster Township, down near Angleside intersection. So the existing county prison right now will be decommissioned likely at the end of 2026, going into 2027. Which will provide a full city block that is now up for redevelopment and for us to imagine. So we have started a small area planning effort to try to envision what might happen there on that piece of land. This commission will be involved in that process, so stay tuned for more details. And there's a lot to unpack on that project. Certainly whether the prison, any portion of the prison stays or goes is a major question of historic resource, and also cost of demolition. And there's a lot of infrastructure that would be needed on that site to support any kind of redevelopment. We want to make sure that it interfaces well with the neighborhood and creates consistency and scale and in use and appearance. So there's so much to say about it. And then, of course, just the emotional process of actually reimagining a piece of land that has, in my opinion, has severely harmed our community for 150 years more, actually, and trying to envision how to correct course on that is, I think, just a major undertaking for our community to consider. So there will be engagement, and I expect a lot of it around that project.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I might, as being part of the Comprehensive Planning Committee, I appreciate hearing all of these things that are in development kind of simultaneously versus let's do this one thing and another thing. To see these things coming together simultaneously is really keeps me optimistic about all of that coming to be. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. It's, we're very excited about it too.
Any public comment? Hearing and seeing none. Have a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn and a second. Ready for the question? All in favor, let it known by saying aye.
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 Motion carries.